Jesus, can you hear me? I'm desperate.
I can hear you, my son. I have always been listening.
Who are you?
Welcome to Thoughts Camera Action. So today we're discussing the universal image of Christ. Now before I go any further, I know this is a very controversial topic, so I need to say a few disclaimers. Now when it comes to salvation, the image of Christ or the colour of Christ or the melanin genetic makeup of Christ doesn't matter. However, when it comes to colonialism, the Eurocentric image of Christ has played a considerable part in colonizing nations and minds. For example, when we go to countries all over the world, we will often see an image of a white Jesus and a white Mary, which we know to be historically and biblically inaccurate.
Now, Jesus was a man. He was human. He was not a white man. He was not a black man. He came from that part of the world that touches Africa and Asia and Europe, and he probably had a brown skin, very much like some of the Indian people here today. And he probably had a brown skin, very much like some of the Indian people here today. And don't ever forget another thing. Jesus belongs to Africa as much as he does to Europe and Asia. He was born in that part of the world that touches Africa and Asia and Europe, and Jesus was not a white man like me, nor was he as black as some of you. We don't know what the color of his skin, but it must have been a dark color like the people of his day. We don't know what the color of his skin, but it must have been a dark color like the people of his day, because he was a man like them.
Let's say David Beckham, popular, well-known, respected footballer. But could you imagine if in 30, 40, 70 years time, non-European nations decided that they would change David Beckham from a European into a Chinese person and disassociate any history or any evidence that said the opposite? This is similar to what's happened with Christ. Oftentimes when people present the true image of Christ based on history and the Bible passages, they're often rebutted.
I think you are suggesting that there's some pretty good historical anthropological evidence suggesting that Jesus just probably was black. Am I?
Usually people will say things like this: it doesn't matter what color Christ is, which is true for salvation purposes.
I just want to say that when God said he was going to make man in his image, he did not mean white, green, or any color. It was supposed to be spiritually like him.
Very good.
And that's what is important.
Yes, well.
But unbeknowingly or unconsciously, what they're actually doing is defending the white image of Christ and silencing any opposition, which brings truth or awareness.
Indeed.
But what color has Jesus been throughout your childhood?
White. And I think that's ridiculous because,
what color was his mother?
you know, who knows? And I don't think anyone...
So stay tuned to this video. I'm just going to explore the topic, provoke a bit of thought. God bless.
It is I, Jesus. I heard your prayer and I've come to help you.
You're not Jesus.
God is white. Isn't it obvious?
Well, that is obvious, but we don't know if it's obvious that God is white. The images of Jesus that are on prison walls and churches throughout the world are not historically correct, because history teaches us that Jesus was born in a region where the people had color.
I am.
But doesn't Jesus look a bit more like...
Oh, I see. You thought I'd be white.
Kind of, yeah.
Look at these telling images from a Jewish synagogue in Syria. They're the earliest pictures of Jewish people in the world.
It's short, it's curly, it's, if you like, Afro in style. It's unlikely that Jesus' skin tones were white in the traditional, as you get it in much of the traditional art, as you get it in the Hollywood Jesuses. It's more likely had darker skin tones.
Just because it makes you feel uncomfortable doesn't mean it has to change. You know, I mean, Jesus was a white man too, but you know, it's like he was a historical figure. I mean, that's a verifiable fact, as is Santa. I just want the kids watching to know that.
On that, Kelly is definitely just incorrect. She's misinformed.
Anyone who has studied the Bible and anyone who knows about the heritage or the roots of Jesus knows that he was a dark-skinned person and probably wasn't a white man. It's not probably was. He wasn't a white man. He was a darker persuasion.
Yeah, he certainly didn't come from
Jewish, right?
He didn't come from Europe. He didn't come from North America. That's just not where he came from. So Jesus isn't white, and saying that is just wrong.
Yeah.
Look, I don't know what to tell you. I was born in the Middle East 2,000 years ago. The Bible's very clear about that. It should be pretty obvious I don't have blonde hair and blue eyes.
Guess so.
So we have to tell our own stories. I mean, even Jesus is white. And you believe it. But it's okay, because how you were framed, if you taught something from the day you were born, and your mother taught you that, your father taught you that, it's real.
This picture has been in my family for as long as I can remember. When I was a baby, I don't know what I saw first. My mama, my papa, or this Jesus. Now, he's the one I know and love, so let's close the subject.
You never look at your mom and your dad as liars. But their mother and father taught them the same thing, because that's the kind of history that's put out for them to believe. Our history books in the U.S. is all white American history, culture that's been borrowed from other nations.
Jesus was black, the Bible would have said so.
But it does say so.
What are you talking about?
I read about it. It's in Revelations chapter 1, verse 14. I read about it in Muhammad Speaks. It says, his hair is like wool, and his eyes are like flame of fire.
Well, Lord have mercy. It sure do say that, don't it?
And see, Mom, look at that hair, like wool, ain't it? And look at them eyes, red like fire.
It's just, you're not really what I was expecting, that's all.
Would you like me to fetch white Jesus instead?
Oh, could you?
So you believe God is white?
Look at that. That's a handsome young man, ain't it? Now, if God looked like Isaac Hayes, you think his son would look like this?
So black people are a...
Cursed!
No! There is no white Jesus. It's just me. Do you want my help or not?
Yeah, I suppose so.
And I was in there, and I was like, what the hell's going on? They're like, James Bond could not be played by Idris Elba because Idris Elba is a black man and James Bond is white. I was like, well, actually, James Bond is a fictional character, and so we can play by anyone because it is fiction. And they were like, well, when you think about it, James Bond was based on a real man who was white, and so he should be played by a real white man. And I was like, well, that just doesn't make sense, because if you think about it, Jesus was technically a black man, but he gets played by a white man. So I don't know what your point is, because that's never stopped me from receiving my blessings. I don't know what you...
After all, you know, black or white, we're both still Christians, right?
I'm guessing now's not the time to tell you I'm Jewish.
Thank you for watching False Camera Action. Before you go anywhere, don't forget to click subscribe.